Diolch yn fawr, Aled Bolodau i gyd. Delighted to be here. If you'd have said to us in June this event was going to take place, I wouldn't have believed you actually. I would have said, no, it's going to take a lot longer than that, the wheels have got to get into motion, etc. etc. So, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to both CHC and WOGA for continuing your relationship in such a constructive way and putting an event on like today. And the fact that you had to turn people away, and the fact that Steve Thomas is having to stand up there at the back is brilliant. So I want to say thank you, and I think this does bode well for where the journey is going to take you. I always found it quite strange when people were talking to me about the Essex review, because it's a difficult surname in Wales. And colloquially it's been known as that, but I have to say I was just one of the team. Peter Williams and Bob Smith, that again would need no introduction to you, or you know very well, were part of the team, and to quote that certain lady, there were 3 of us in this relationship, and in fact there were 4 of us, which makes it even more dicey, wasn't it, because Lisa Dobbins was there. So I'm the front person really for that team, and I have huge thanks and respect for the contributions they made. Now, this morning my contribution is quite difficult. You know, originally I think I was going to come on at the beginning and go through the report and say this is what it says, etc., etc. Now the Minister has said she's taken it on board and Matthew's doing this. It's quite difficult really to go back over the report. So I thought I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go through the report, and you'll be relieved to know that I won't go through that in detail. I think I'll try and speak a bit on the hoof and be reflective of what both Jocelyn and Matthew have said, but also obviously refer to the key messages in the review. And first of all, I have to say a wonderful relief that the report has been taken very seriously. And that doesn't always happen with reports. As someone who's sat in government, I can tell you I've seen more reports than I've had hot dinners, and many of them just go on the shelf, go in the cabinet, and go completely off the agenda. That is not true with this one, and I hope it's because it's about such important things in people's lives, really critical things, that none of us can walk away from that. And certainly for those of you that have been involved in housing for many years, and those of us that have been politicians for many years, we can put faces to the numbers, and I think that always does concentrate your mind. But I hope that the way that we did the work on the review as a team helped to foster the way that you're taking this forward, because we really did want to make that inclusive. We certainly might have thought ourselves knowledgeable, but none of us were the fountain of all knowledge. We wanted to listen to you, to speak with you and people outside this room, a whole mixture of people, including the people that live in the houses, the tenants. We wanted to make sure that we heard your views, but we wanted to make sure that we came up with something that really did take the agenda forward in a way that you would recognise and you would feel empathy with, and could be the basis for moving this forward. And I think when I heard Jocelyn talk about her reaction, I heard Matthew talk about the way he's taking forward, and I know what Lisa's and Kath are doing on this. That inclusive way that you're going forward, which is not a norm, I have to say, for the way that central government tends to behave, I think is really, really encouraging. The report was never a blueprint. I wouldn't want anyone to say, oh, this is a Bible and we've got to take this forward, because, as we said, I think somewhere in it, that things change, and you know, we have to live in that real world where there's changing. But I do think that what we do see around this is a sense of common purpose, and that common purpose bodes well for the collaboration and partnership that is absolutely fundamental. Now, the report was launched, as Jocelyn said, in June. Gosh, that seems such a long way ago, doesn't it? We've had a horrible wet summer in the time. It feels like a lifetime in some ways. And what we've seen, unfortunately, is the external financial world get a lot more difficult. And at that time, we were talking about the credit crunch. I think it's moved into a credit crisis now, and I hope it doesn't move into a credit catastrophe. I think those of you that are watching the news will see how precarious this wonderful globalisation of financial affairs has brought us to. I hope we don't move that, and I hope that we can, or governments can work together, particularly governments, and avoid that. But I do kind of think there's been some pretty heavy chickens coming home to roost here. And you didn't have to be brain of Britain to see where all this was going from. As my grandmother used to say, Lisa and I used to exchange grandmother's sayings over these things. My grandmother used to say, it'll all end in tears. That's there for some people, but the people that are crying tend to be not the people that have been greedy and, of course, the problem in the first place. Looking at where we've been over the last few weeks, Peter's views, Peter, you don't have to go through Peter's pedigree around this, but he was obviously very, very close to the private sector and the housing market. His view is that borrowing is getting harder, and I guess the decision of the two banks, big banks, to amalgamate yesterday will perhaps emphasise that actually borrowing is getting difficult, much harder credit. Controls will get harder, which pushes us even more to the thought of making sure that our house is healthy here in Wales to attract the private funding that we need. Some of the things that may have been a kind of panacea a year ago, 2 years ago, are around using Section 106s to deliver on affordable housing, for cross-subsidies, for low-cost home ownership, are not there in that way now. We've seen a massive contraction of the private house building sector in a way that I haven't seen, and I've been involved in planning. If you're a solicitor, a planner's even more disreputable, but I've been involved in planning for many years, and I've never seen anything quite like this. And if you want Peter's dire prediction, he's standing at the back, and you can throw the tomatoes at him. Yeah, Peter's words are that the crunch will be with us till 2011, Peter? Yeah? There's a bit of optimism to keep us going. But every crisis has an opportunity, all right? Just remember that. And there are some people who are making a lot of money and potentially will make a lot of money out of this. And we've got to be with it, and we've got to be alert to where the opportunities are. I think there's nothing in what's happened over the last couple of months that will change our views. And I've contacted Peter and Bob very much emphasises there's nothing over the last couple of months that says what we said was wrong. In fact, what it does do is intensify some of those messages. So as I stand here today, I still feel confident that what we were saying, even though the details may change over time, but the key messages stay the same. And if I can just put a personal view in this, I think it just emphasises so much that the market never has, isn't, and never will be the complete answer to housing. It just isn't. There is always a strong role for state intervention, either or both at the state level, and particularly at local government level.